Welcome to the All Access Entertainment Podcast. I am your host, Joseph Bruen, and here this week, one of the greats in the world of professional wrestling, one of the greats in the world of photography. Ladies and gentlemen, an honor to have the one and only Mr. Duane Long here today. Thank you for joining us.
How are you doing, Joe? Good to talk to you. Good to see you.
Absolutely. A pleasure to have you here, and really looking forward to this. I think this is a treat. I think the fans are certainly going to enjoy this. I know I will, and it's going to be great kind of taking a dive into your career. I've always been a fan of photography, as we spoke about off air, so really enjoy these interviews when they pop up, and they don't pop up that often, so very excited about this.
Great. Thank you. This is a first for me, so I'm happy, and I've kind of gathered some things together over the past year or so. When a friend of mine that passed away, he was a good friend of mine, good wrestling fan also, said, "You got to write a book on the stuff that you've done." And I said, "Man, I don't have much patience for writing a book," but it got me thinking. It got me putting some stuff together and looking at some things and realizing that I've had a lot of good things happen to me because of wrestling over the years. And it's my favorite thing to photograph of all the, I'm a professional photographer. I have been since I was probably 17 years old. And I've done weddings and golf tournaments, which I still do, bar mitzvahs, everything you can think of. In fact, I did one funeral one time. That was interesting. But
Wow.
But wrestling is my favorite, even though the money's not the same. Obviously, from an event, you can charge more money for. But to be involved in something that I truly love since I was a kid, how cool is that? So I'm really, and be around ringside and all that good stuff. I've had a really, really fun time with it.
And with all those different things that you've been a part of outside of wrestling, what are some of your other favorites to photographer?
I love sports photography. And I do a lot of I work with a yearbook company down here that does school photography also, and puts yearbooks together and all that. And so they have high school activities that need to be photographed: football, basketball, not hockey down here, but every sport, soccer, volleyball, everything. And I love photographing that because I love catching the action and, trying to get that ESPN type shot. But to cover it and to make, what's interesting too is what doesn't make it in the yearbook also can be purchased from the website of the company that I work for. So that brings out the father and the grandfather in me that has an athlete grandson, actually, brings out that and able to have the families enjoy some photos of their child that maybe they weren't even at the game. So that pleases me to be able to get as many photos of I can that I can of everybody. And like I said, on a fatherly or grandfatherly note, it enables them to be able to partake and have in those photos. I think that's good. It's great memories. And I just remember having memories of my son playing baseball and my grandson. And it's one of those things that just it warms my heart that I can actually contribute in that way, But weddings and bar mitzvahs, I don't do weddings a whole lot anymore because they've gotten really kind of different than it used to be. But I enjoy most everything. But like I said, wrestling's any sports, really. Boxing was involved with wrestling too with me as a side note, because the magazines that I was shooting for, which we'll get into, they also put out KO and Ring magazine. And I was assigned to some of the boxing matches and training sessions down here in Florida over the years. So that was cool too. So anything that moves, I like taking pictures of.
Absolutely. Who are some of the boxing personalities that you've met over the years?
Oh, gosh. Well, one of my claims to fame in boxing, I guess you could say, is I remember Oscar De La Hoya.
Yeah.
When he was coming out of the Olympics, two things actually. He was in West Palm, down here in West Palm area, and he was training. And I did his first photo session as a pro, or I guess a soon-to-be pro, his first magazine coverage. I had a cover shot and all that kind of stuff. We met him at a hotel and had a studio set up and did all that. And so I was I did his first photo layout for any professional magazine. And that was before he turned pro. And the ironic thing about it, the very next night he was supposed to fight. It was a Russia against USA card that was an amateur card, and it was at the I think it was Olympic base somehow. I'm not sure, but it was at the auditorium down here where wrestling was always held many years ago. And I was all geared up to after the photo shoot the night before to do the card that night and get his match. And he was training in the morning running, and he stepped on a piece of glass or something. I don't know, but he had to pull out of the fight. So I didn't get to do the fight. They didn't have it, but that was interesting.
Wow.
But yeah, over the years, let's see, Larry Holmes, he had a comeback in 1991, one of the comebacks, I guess, down here in Fort Lauderdale at the, no, Hollywood, Florida, at the, I think it was at the Diplomat Hotel. I covered that match. 2002, Arturo Gatti, who's passed away since, but him and his trainer, I think his trainer was named Mickey Ward at the time. Yeah. They had a training session. He was training for a fight with somebody down here. And I got to photograph his training session, and that was fun. Got some pictures with him and stuff, but that was neat. What a cool guy, too. Mickey Ward was neat. Sugar Ray Leonard in 1981, I think it was. He was training for a fight with Larry Holmes. And they were training at PGA National down here in Palm Beach Gardens. It's interesting how many boxers actually have come through here and trained and fought. I never looked at boxing as a, it's always a Atlantic City and a Vegas or whatever type of thing, but
Yeah.
it's really amazing. Kermit Cintron down here. I did a photo session with him, and there was somebody else, and I can't remember who it was that fought down here. But Sugar Ray Leonard was fun. 1981, it was like a 2-day session, and got a pair of autographed gloves from him, which was kind of cool. I don't know whatever happened to them, but I should look for them. But yeah, so boxing's been fun too,
And
definitely.
when it comes to boxing, did you do all, action shots, or did you also do maybe some posed studio shots or anything like that? Or
Pose stuff, yeah, the De La Hoya thing was a big deal. And actually, Gotti, I didn't do posed. I did posed on Sugar Ray Leonard. I did posed on Kermit Cintron and Margoy. There's another guy. I can't remember his name. Mayorga. He was one that always had cigarettes. He always got griff. He always got guff from everyone about how he smoked, and he showed off smoking. And it was really weird, but he was an athlete. But I remember doing a photo session with him, which was interesting. I think Carlos Mayorga might have been his name.
okay.
But a lot of things down here in South Florida, which surprised me now that I think about it, because it's not really a boxing state, but people
Yeah.
come down here for the weather.
Right, exactly. Now,
Right.
rewinding to the very beginning for you, when did you first discover pro wrestling, and who were some of your favorites, as a fan?
Um, Interesting note. I've lived in Florida most all my life. I was born in Washington State, and moved down here kind of immediately after I was born. I don't know why that happened, but moved down here, moved back to Oregon and Washington in the 5th and 6th grade. So however old I was then, 1969 to 70, somewhere in that area. And my first wrestling to see on television was that territory. I guess it was the Northwest, not Northwest. Well, the Portland territory and whatever was in Washington. I'm not sure. But Tony, back then I was a kid watching TV, and there was guys like Tony Bourne, Lonnie Main, Roger Kirby. I think before he was Rip Kirby, Ox Baker. Who else was down there? Tony Bourne, Jimmy Snuka actually started up there, and I don't know if Piper. I don't know if Piper did or not. Rocky Johnson did, and he was a mainstay down here for a while because he lived down here. But I think Rocky Johnson. But I don't know if Piper was old enough to have started back then or not. But that was my first watching of wrestling, and just fell in love with it. And Yeah, and I was there for 2 years and watched it all the time. Then we moved to Florida when I was in seventh grade, and got into championship wrestling from Florida, and watched that all the time. Couldn't get enough of that. It was just what a territory that was down here. It's the hotbed. I mean, obviously but it's interesting. It was on Saturdays at I think 1 o'clock every Saturday. Gordon Soley, and it's funny because if I wasn't home, we had a mall near us. It was like, well, it wasn't really near us, but I would somehow catch a bus down and go to the mall when I was young, just to hang around the mall because I loved hanging around the mall and going to the movie theater and things. And there was a Sears down there, and every Saturday I'd have to go to the mall, but I didn't want to miss wrestling. So I would go to where the TVs were at 1 o'clock and just sit there and watch TV for an hour, and then go back out in the mall and hang out.
Wow.
But I didn't want to miss my wrestling. But that's how I got involved as far as a fan.
Yeah.
Washington, and then the great state of Florida after that.
And when it comes to photography, you started photography roughly around 10th grade. And then around 1975, you would get into the wrestling industry. Why don't you tell us about how you got into it in general and in the 10th grade, when that first came about, that love for taking photos?
Well, 10th grade, I was taking photos of different things, and we have an auditorium down here called the West Palm Beach Auditorium, and every Monday night was the loop. They did Mondays here, Tuesdays in Tampa, Wednesdays in Miami, Thursdays in Jacksonville or Sarasota, Friday, I don't know where Friday was. Um, Saturday, not sure. Saturday might have been Tampa, um, or St. Pete. No, I don't remember. I never was up in that area too much. And then Sunday was Orlando, and they'd be back here Monday. And every Monday night, I would go to the shows. And so I was in 11th grade then, I think it was. So I was like 17 years old. And then I got hooked up with the caterer there, uh, that ran the concession. I guess they call it a caterer. Ran the concession there and all sales and all that. I got involved with him, and he said, "Hey, you need a job, blah blah blah. You're here all the time." And I hooked up with him, and any event that came there when they had programs, like if they had concerts, they had programs, and they used to sell. I don't know if they had 8 tracks back then or records, whatever they were, and anything involving any merchandising, I would be there and get a percentage, and so I was in. And that included Monday nights with the programs, the wrestling programs. And the wrestling programs back then were like 25 cents. And we'd have good crowds there. I mean, it was a 6,000 seat auditorium, and we'd have anywhere from 2,000 to 6,000, depending on the card. And this was weekly. And it's amazing how it is, because nowadays nothing's weekly anymore at all. But to sustain an audience like that, it just shows what the product did and what it was. Um, but I was selling programs there, and I would get in free, of course, and I would be able to sit on the corner by ringside. Out, they had a barrier, and it was outside the barrier, and I'd sit here and sell programs. I made friends with everybody. I knew everybody. And then I would scoop my seat over, and at the time, I had a 126 camera, which is, I know you're not old enough to remember what that was, but it was film, and it had little flash cubes on the top. And you can only take 4 pictures, and you have to take the flash cube off, put another flash cube on. Well, that got to be real expensive. I'm taking pictures from the first row, which includes ropes and everything. And I said, well, I don't want to do this anymore. So when I graduated high school, I did that for about 6 months, I guess. And I just take pictures. I have a bunch of pictures with ropes and a bunch of hardly nothings, but it was exciting to me. So I was borrowing a camera before as a professional. When I was getting paid for things, I was borrowing a 35 millimeter film camera, but I couldn't afford one to buy. So my dad bought me a 35 millimeter camera on my graduation year, which is 76. I brought it to the ring. I brought it to the matches, and I just was in heaven. I had a little zoom lens thing, and I was taking really good pictures. And so that's where that started. not officially. I wasn't doing anything with them except keeping them. And there was a ring announcer. Well, they had always had a ring announcer also, and they had a bell guy that would hit the bell, and the table was by the ring. And I knew who the bell guy was, but I didn't really know who he was. And we're talking one night, and he said, "You ought to. What do you do with your pictures?" And I said, "Well, I just kind of take them and all that." And he goes, "You ought to meet my son." And I said, "Who's your son?" He goes, "Do you read the wrestling magazines?" And I said, "Yes, I do." And at the time, they didn't have Pro Wrestling Illustrated. This was back when they had Sports Review Wrestling and The Wrestler and all that, Inside Wrestling. Monthlies, they'd have, I think they even had some quarterlies back then, which were Superstars and all that. And he said, "My son's Bill Apter. He's the editor of the magazines."
Wow.
And I go, "Wow." I go, right then my eyes, and I'm like, "You think he can, would he buy pictures from me?" He says, "Well, you could see, we didn't have cell phones back then, obviously, or emails. I don't even know if we had email back then, but he said, I'll talk to him and see." So the next Monday night I come and he said, "Yeah, send some stuff up." So I was excited. I couldn't wait to finish doing programs that night so I could turn around and start doing stuff. And I had my girlfriend at the time, was my wife now. I started dragging her in there and let her sell programs over in the thing
Yep.
so I could actually shoot pictures. But I'm still shooting from the front row, kind of at a corner, and I'm getting some good stuff, better than it was with the 126 camera. And I just submitted him a pile of photos that I printed, 4x6 photos, a pile of them that I got. And about 4 weeks later or whatever, I got a message back that it looks like some good stuff, but it's not, the lighting's not right and all that kind of stuff. But, I'd like to use your things because my timing was good on some action shots and things. And he said, "But I really can't." I think he bought a couple of them just to satisfy me, maybe outside the ring when they're around the ring. And during that time period where I had been there every Monday night, I kind of got to know some of the people, like Oliver Humperdinck. Sir Oliver Humperdinck was one of the people. Um, there was a guy, Mac McMurray, that recently passed, I think a couple of years ago. He was, I don't know what he was exactly, but he was involved. He was back there. He was with the wrestling crew. And it was an official status. Sir Oliver Humperdinck I got to know because, of course, he was a bad guy manager, and he was always coming on that side of the ring, and I'd always take pictures of him because he didn't know who I was, but he was ham, right? So I got to know him a little bit, and I talked to Nat Apter. Nat Apter's the dad. He's was the guy at ringside, and he Bill said, "I really can't use too much, and can you get closer?" And I go, "Well, not really." I said, "I'm kind of right here." And then I asked Nat to ask him if he can get me ringside. So he couldn't do it for whatever reason. He couldn't do that. I don't know why, but he couldn't do it. Now I had known Humperdinck for a while, just like I said, back and forth talking over by the cage and whatever. And so I was kind of friendly with him. I wasn't about to ask him because I didn't know where the protocols were with who's what. I never went in the dressing room. I never thought I was somebody, even after when I started really taking photos professionally with them or for them. But I'll never forget one night when Bill said he couldn't get me in the ring. I go, "I got to get in the ring. I got to get closer." And I was part of the furniture there at that point because I've been going for a long time. And so all the wrestling people kind of knew me. They always smiled towards the camera and stuff too when they were standing. And I'm going, you know what? And I'm like, you ever done something where you're like, "Oh my God, I'm going to get killed here. This is ridiculous. What am I doing?"
Right.
So one night, and my friend always told me, "You got to call the book this, you got to title the book." The night I stepped over the rail. And I went one night, and Eddie Graham was there that night too. Now, I'm sure you know all the backstory of Eddie Graham, how, he's no BS person and he's protecting. And I knew it was a business. I knew about it at the time. I was kind of a little bit in the know of different things by different things that I was talked about with some conversations I've had. So I knew, but I also knew that you you don't just crawl over the rail, right?
Right.
But one night I had my camera and I had a flash and everything. And I first, before the match had started, I stepped over the rail and my back was to the bad and the good guys' dressing rooms back there because I didn't want my face to be seen. Like I thought I was hiding somehow if I was over there with my back to the dressing room. Like no one's going to see me hanging around the ring, leaning on the ring apron. And I just started taking pictures. And the whole time I was so nervous that I was just waiting for someone to come and grab my neck and pull me out and throw me out and get the cops on me, right? And I took the first match, nothing. Second match, nothing. I'm like, wow, this is cool. I know somebody saw me. They had to have because the dressing room wasn't very far away. It wasn't like an arena, you know?
Yeah.
So I made it through that whole night and not one peep from anyone. And
Wow.
even Humperdinck, actually, Humperdinck was on that night. And he goes, "You're with the big boys over here now, huh?" And I was scared that someone was going to see me talking to him even. So I stayed as low as I could. I could be as low on the floor as I couldn't get any lower on the floor. I didn't want to get seen, right? So from that point on, I was in. And I said, oh my God. And I sent some pictures to Bill. I had to print them up. You know, you had to print them up, send them a package of photos that big. I had some good stuff. And I sent him, and he was like, how did you do that? I said, you're never going to believe it. Because I didn't want to get him in trouble either.
Yeah.
Like maybe he told me to do it. I said, Bill, I'm good. I'm good. I told him I talked to Humperdinck or whatever, but I made something up. But
Yeah.
so from that point on, I was in like Flynn. And, but I was scared all night. I was scared all night. Eddie Graham was going to be the one, and he was there, and he's never there. And I picked the night that he's there, that he's going to come rough me up, but it didn't happen. So tell you what, and from that point on, that was around 76. I get well, I graduated in 76. So I was around the ring every Monday night, except when they didn't have it, which wasn't very often, till 1987.
Wow.
That's a lot of weeks, and it was a fun night. I couldn't believe it. I was so excited. I got home and I'm like, so yeah.
And what was your experience like overall working for Pro Wrestling Illustrated throughout those years, and working with Bill, up close and personal?
Well, you know what's funny? I you know Charlie's Angels, right? Where
Yeah.
the Angels never saw Charlie.
Right.
It was kind of that way with Bill. I didn't. I talked on the phone with him and through Nat some of the times, and Nat was excited for me too. And but he was excited that he hooked me up with his son. He was proud of his son. He was proud of Bill because Bill's like the big publisher of the magazine or editor, whatever he was. No, editor. Yeah, chief editor. So I didn't know. I didn't meet Bill. I only heard him talk and whatever. Interesting note: the very first time I met Bill Apter was 1978, which is 2 years after when I started doing the photos in West Palm. It was at the Super Bowl of Wrestling down in the Orange Bowl, down in Miami. The infamous Harley race against superstar Billy Graham. They were trying to integrate the titles or whatever. And huge card, out of stadium, outdoors.
Wow.
Of course, it rained. And that was in itself no fun, but
Oh,
yeah, it rained. I think it's 60,000 people the place holds. I don't know how many tickets they actually sold, but it rained. And there was a lot less people there than there could have been because it rained most of the night. And the mat was soaked. And the guys, of course, they got wrestling boots. They don't have, you know, shoes to climb mountains. So
right.
it's kind of slick in there. So it was the most exciting night in the world to me because I got to meet Bill Apter, number one. So I shot ringside around with him after we talked for a while. And there were some other people there too, like famous photographers, Raul, Bill Otten was down there, De Leon, I can't remember his first name. I can't remember his first name. I just met him finally for the first time about a year ago at a fan fest down here. He was one of the photographers too down here in Florida. And I'm not sure who he shot for. I think he shot for Apter also. But Bill Otten was there. There was about 3 or 4 Japanese, Jimmy Suzuki, of all the people. It was like a big crowded ringside area. But that was when I first met him, and ever since then, we've just been really good friends along the way, and we don't bump into each other too much. I ran into him last year, I think, at a fan fest down here in Florida. Also, um, haven't seen him in a while, but he's still pumping around doing his One Wrestling. I think is the broadcast that he does. But yeah, so that was it.
Any memories of photographer Roy London, who also worked for PWI for some time?
I never met him at all. He probably did a lot of the Northeast things and all that. I didn't.
Yeah.
My travels were pretty much Georgia and here,
Mm.
Florida. Um, and I've heard of Roy London, and I didn't know if he was like London Publishing. I didn't know how that correlated. I never found out or figured out or asked, but I've heard the name. Yes, that's all I've had.
And you mentioned, one of your first cameras there. What are some of the different cameras and the different styles that you've used over the years? And did you have a favorite?
Well, my favorite is it was my first camera was a Fuji film camera, 35 millimeter, and I've had Minolta film and all that. When I finally went to digital, I went to Canon, and I'm not sure. I don't remember when digital came out. I think two, 2000, early 2000s, I guess. I can't remember when I got my first camera, my first digital, but I've had 3 or 4 digital cameras since then. I have different lenses and all that. But yeah, Canon's my favorite. I've never got into Nikon. It's always that Nikon Canon war that the photographers have amongst each other, but
Yeah.
Canon's better. It doesn't matter. So
And when
served
it
me well.
Yeah, and when it comes to the posed photos that you've done, and then the action shots, do you have a preference, one or the other?
I like the action shots better, but I've had some good interactions with the post shots. You can actually talk to the guys and interact better. One of my, I think it was, when was it, 88, late 80s, when this was interesting because the first thing I thought of when you said about the post photo is one of my favorite interactions with anybody. I used to love Barry Windham as a wrestler. He was just fluid in the ring every single time. He was probably one of my favorite people to photograph because him and Flair and him and whoever, it was awesome to see. He never stayed. I always tried to get a pose shot of him in the ring, like standing and looking, doing anything at all.
Yeah.
But he's moving the whole time. He's always moving. I always thought he's always moving. You never get a good shot of him doing anything except moving. But that's his thing. But one of the coolest things was at the Night Center in Miami, just before he went to the Four Horsemen, and no one knew anything about anything with the Horsemen. It was all secret because it hadn't happened yet. And we were doing backstage stuff, and he goes like this. He's looking around. He goes, "Here's one for you." He goes like this. I go, "Wow!" And I took the picture and I sent it to Apter. Now, by the time Apter got it and put it in the magazine or did whatever, they've already done the turn. So it wasn't like, wasn't going to spoil anything. It's not like immediate, like on the internet.
Right.
But that was fun. Stuff like that is neat when you can actually have an interaction with somebody and talk. Terry Funk was another good one like that. He was great. Him and Dory. Um, I did a show. It was an independent show down here that Jerry Gray was running down in West Palm at the fairgrounds. And Terry and Dory Funk were on the card as a main event singles matches. And I had met Terry a couple of times before that, and I talked to him. I said, "Hey, can I get some shots of you and Dory together? Because they're never together too much." And we went kind of in the backstage kind of area, whatever it was. And I just had my flash, and I took some good pictures of them together. And the very next match was Terry against, I think it was Jerry Gray. And it's so funny. I had a shirt on that had buttons on it. It was a short sleeve shirt and had buttons on it. And I'm going around the ring, and Terry Funk, I'm starting to take pictures, and before the match starts, the bell rings. And the very first thing he does is comes diving out of the ring towards me. And he goes, "No pictures. Get out of here. No pictures." I'm like, okay, this is weird. And I'm selling it, but I don't know. You never know these guys are going to do
Right.
sometimes. I'm going to stand there and look at him, right? So I go out of the thing and I go back up in there, and he gets in a hold, and he actually has a headlock on. He breaks the hold, and he comes out and yells at me again. And I'm
Wow.
thinking, I just talked these guys. I chatted them up back then in the back. It was like friendly, right? And I'm like, where are we going with this, right? I had to get my pictures. So I, I waited a little bit. I stood out there for like 10 minutes and let him get involved in the match a little bit more. And then something else went on, and I went back in on the other side of the ring. I almost felt like the first night in West Palm. I felt like hiding, right? And I go to take pictures again. He comes out of the ring, and I'm backing up, and he comes after me, and he grabs my shirt barely. I barely got away, and he pulls my shirt, and my buttons fly off my shirt.
Oh, wow.
And he gets back in the ring, and then as he does that, he comes back over and he turns around and he goes, "Now you can come back." And I go, "Okay, good. Okay, thank you." And I still played off like I didn't want to go back in and all that because I knew what the deal was at that point. But I'm like, why is he pissed at me? I didn't do anything wrong. But I know what it was too. That's what it was. The first two times, that's what it was. I figured it out after. When he was in the down position, the guy had him in a headlock the second time is what it was.
Hmm.
And I guess he played it off as he didn't want any pictures of himself in the down position. Now that think about that again. So yeah, he actually broke out of the headlock and came and got me the second time, and that's the third time is when he got my shirt. But anyway, that was really interesting. So the pose photo back there in the backstage, when I thought they were all nice and friendly, then he attacks me. That was interesting. Abdullah the Butcher one time, West Palm Beach Auditorium, he kayfabed me back then for sure. He had a manager called Gentleman Jim Holiday back then. And at the auditorium, there was a passageway between the two dressing rooms in the back, and no one could see anything going on back there. And the dressing rooms were separated. And I asked Humperdinck to see if Holiday could bring Abdul out and get some pose pictures out on the wall. So I met him out there, and they come out there, and Abdul the whole time didn't say a word to me. Nothing. He just, because that was his thing back then.
Yeah.
And even though he knew, because Humperdinck smartened him up and told him I was okay, whatever. But he didn't say anything. He's like the whole time, like, and I'm talking to him, and Jim says he doesn't talk. I'm like, okay. So we're taking pictures. And later on that night, he comes after me and starts to grab my flash off my top of my camera, which would have broke the shoe and everything off of it. And then he got back in the ring and didn't do anything else. But I'm like, what is it about me in the pictures with the guys coming after me right away? But Kevin Sullivan used to goof around me a lot like that too. Clash of Champions, stuff like that we'd do down here. He'd always act like he was going to come after me. But I knew he wasn't. He would always stop short, but he'd always put the intimidation out there,
Yeah.
let the fans know, hey, you don't want to be in here. This guy's crazy,
Right.
So, yeah.
You mentioned Ox Baker earlier. Any interactions with Ox over the years?
It's interesting here. I had some pictures. I dragged them out. I'm sorry, I'm off camera. I got a few pictures that I've taken with some, it's funny because back in the day, and back in the Florida day, like I said, with in the late 70s and through the 80s, I never went into the dressing rooms, and I always felt uncomfortable getting pictures with someone, even though I probably could have, and I really wanted to, because I was fans too. I was a fan of them too. I wanted, but I felt like I was, I don't know, kind of like an unprofessional kind of thing. So I never did, and I really regret that I didn't. But one of the things I did the Fan Fest up in Charlotte in two different times. Greg Price was running it. I'm trying to remember what years they were. I don't remember. One of the years I had at my booth, I had a photo booth with my photos and some posters that I had made to sell and all that. And one of the years I had Stacy Carter, Cat, and also Percy Pringle, who he went by then at that point. Well, actually, he was. This was when he had WWE. This is when he was Paul Bearer also.
Okay.
But he had both sets of pictures, as Percy and Paul Bearer. And I had it was funny because I had an urn. I asked him if he could bring an urn to do the photo ops at my booth. He goes, "Oh, it's heavy, whatever." So there was a guy in town here that I kind of was a friend of somebody else, and he owned a funeral parlor. And I go in there, I'm thinking this is stupid, but I go in and I said, "You know what?" I said, "I'm doing a picture thing up, and I don't know if you ever watch wrestling and all that, but I said I need an urn. Can I have an urn, like an empty one, obviously?"
Yeah.
So, and he goes, "Yeah, wrestling. Come on." So he got an urn. It was a real full size urn, and I go up to Charlotte and I bring this urn with me, and all my photo ops had Paul Bearer with the urn, and I thought that was so cool.
Wow.
I had him at my booth, and another year I had Black Bart. Another year I did it, the year before. But this is when you're talking about Ox Baker. That's a picture I have of Ox Baker with me. That was at the Fan Fest,
Oh wow, look at that.
and he just what a cool guy. And he was the loudest person in the room, and he was just fun. He was just enjoyable. He'd walk around and he was giving ribs to the Steiners, and it was a lot of. The guy was a card. And this is the picture I took of me and Percy,
Yes.
or Paul Bearer or whatever, with the urn. That was in my photo booth. But so
So
all
that
my
looks to
photo
be
ops.
oh, sorry,
What's
go
that?
ahead. I was gonna say that looks to be around 2010, 2011 era.
I think I'm trying to remember when it was. 2000. It had to be. I don't recall exactly when it was. Yeah, it's probably that. But but since, like I said, I used to be trepidatious about taking pictures with different people and things over the years in the
Yeah.
beginning of time. But since then, whenever I go to Fan Fest, which I don't go to a lot of them, but when I do, I try to. And I don't like going. I don't like paying the $1 million photo op kind of thing. I won't get into that. But uh, nowadays, it's gotten out of hand. I think a little bit with things. But um, I try to. I've had pictures with the Road Warriors. I've had pictures with Roddy Piper, and just because I wanted to finally do it, and this is
Yeah.
it's fun. So and being backstage, I mean, different times I was backstage, uh, like the XWF when
Mm.
they were down here, when Hogan and Jimmy Hart were running that. I think for a couple years, I was invited to go and do photos up there at the. Um, it was the sound stage at Universal, I think it was in Orlando, and it was a short-lived promotion, but they had a lot of names. They had Hennig, they had the Road Warriors, Roddy Piper. So I used my backstage influence, I guess you call it, then to get my pictures of people that I hadn't got pictures done before. But
Wow.
those were fun times too, doing those matches.
Mm.
Meeting Hulk Hogan again. Um, yeah, it was it was good. I like that a lot. I have one of my favorite pictures I had. I saved. Oh, this I was going to bring this out later, but
Ah, there it is. I was gonna ask you about that one. That's a classic.
yeah,
So,
I met Stone Cold. This was the
how did that
night.
come about?
Well, it's interesting. It was what year was it? 80 Austin 2001. Right around 2001 when Stone Cold he won. It was a SmackDown taping, and that was some of the times that we were still allowed around the ring by WWE or F. Um, but I'll go into that little part too. But we were still allowed around the ring as photographers. And that was the night that Stone Cold decided to go bonkers and beat the hell out of everybody. He came out to the ring and Michael Cole had said something about he didn't like Stone Cold's chances in one of the car matches coming up or whatever
Yeah.
like that. So Stone Cold comes out and he's making an example of Michael Cole, just beat the living crap out of him and knocking his headset off and everything else, tearing everything apart over there. And I'm taking pictures, and my corner where I was at was right opposite of the ringside table where they were sitting. It was over by where the entrance ramp feeds into the ring. And I'm standing there. I was taking pictures of him at the table doing things, and I backed over to my corner. And Stone Cold comes around and he's seething mad. He's sweating and it's just, you know how he is. Anyway, but when he's a mad Stone Cold, you just kind of leaned up against the ring and let him go by, take pictures, let him go by because you don't want to get in the way, right? So I'm taking pictures. He passes me, he goes up the ramp. He comes back down the ramp and makes a beeline for me. I'm at the corner, just standing there. He makes a beeline for me, and he's standing there, and he did what you saw in the picture. He's just glaring at me, and his sweat's dripping off. And I'm like, I didn't know what he was going to do. I had no idea what he was going to do. And I got my camera over here, and I'm thinking, I want to tell him, you can hit me if you want, but don't hit my camera, please. But I didn't want to say anything at all. I was freezing, and he just that glare to have somebody like that. And he's not mad at me, but he looked like he was going to kill me. And then he walked away. He did. It was probably 20 seconds of that.
Wow.
That's enough.
Yeah.
And he walks away, walk back up the ramp. And first thing I thought of is, I'm glad he didn't hit my camera. The second thing I thought of is, I'm going to be on TV. This is going to be cool, right? And come to find out, after I was taping it at home because I knew I was going to be up there. And I called my wife and I said, were you watching? She goes, yeah, I was watching. She said, what happened when Stone Cold beat that guy up, whatever? I said, yeah, you didn't see what happened after? And she goes, no. She would have told me if she did, right?
Yeah.
So what happened is when he walked up the ramp, before he came back down, they cut to commercial.
Okay.
I didn't know that. So those pictures, there's two of them actually. One is just before, just after. They were taken by my good friend Jim Varsalone, who you're probably familiar with. He's such a blessing for wrestling down here in the state of Florida. Used to work for the Miami Herald. Not sure what his publication is now, but he's always got his camera and he's always reporting about wrestling and putting in a good light as much as he can about Florida and about wrestling down here. He wasn't allowed ringside access up there, but he was up there and he was just wandering around outside the barrier. He happened to be in that very corner when that happened.
Oh.
So I would have had no record of that at all, that was the most awesome thing ever.
Yeah.
But I always thank Jim. I said, you're a savior. You got me a little notoriety for what I did, but I wish it would have been on TV. That would have been fun. But as it was, I didn't get hurt, and I was scared to death for a few minutes. But yeah, interesting.
And how did that come about for you? Doing photography at the World Wrestling Federation, obviously through the magazine, I would assume. But do you remember your very first time doing it for them?
I don't remember my first time. I know that in the late '80s, early '80s, I was doing some TV and things for them, not for them, but of the TV matches. We were allowed around the ring, so it was me and Jimmy Suzuki and Bill Otten and a couple other Japanese photographers. I was the only one shooting for the States because Bill Otten was shooting for. I don't know how they had so many different Japanese photographers, but I always wondered why they had to have three photographers submitting to Japan. But Bill would sometimes, actually, Bill would submit to Apters magazines too sometimes. But the very first WWF show, I don't really remember when I started, but I know that in the late '80s they banned photographers around the ring. And from what I understand, it was because some photographer grabbed Shawn Michaels had some kind of gimmick on the ring that he had to use in the match, and he put it in the corner, did something. And from what I understand, a photographer moved it, like knocked it off or something, thought it wasn't supposed to be there, and it messed up the finish or it halted it a little bit or whatever. So they kicked everybody off around the ring. And the other thing I think was that they had their own magazine going too, and they wanted their own photos as being good photos in their magazine and not in ours also. So that was one of the things that they did was they banned us around the ringside and all that. And the interesting thing about that is some of my best money was made when they banned us around from the ringside, because what we had to do then and there was a couple of us around the country or whatever that did this. We got tickets to the show and shot from wherever with a long lens, usually. And buildings at that time, based on what WWF wanted, they didn't want any professional cameras in the arenas.
Hmm.
So we had to sneak the camera in. And that was when film was still being used.
Right.
So, and we shot a lot of film when we shoot the matches. And mostly on TVs, obviously, superstars of wrestling, whatever else was going on, pay per views.
Yep.
We would have to get a ticket. Actually, Bill after would buy the ticket, buy 2 tickets or whatever, and if I had to bring somebody or whatever. But that was I made the most money because it was in demand at that point because we were getting stuff that they didn't want us to get,
Right.
and it went on for a few years like that. And I remember sneaking. I mean, we're talking security at the buildings, trying to smuggle a long lens in and 15, 20 rolls of film
Wow.
and a camera. And I, every single time, knock on my fingers, I,
Oh,
uh, I was successful. Um, and there was key times where it was a big deal because they had something coming up that they knew about. And they said, you got to get to this show. They would fly me to shows in Tampa. If I had to go to work on a Monday or whatever, and the show was Sunday and I couldn't drive up there and back in time, the magazine would fly me up there. It was that important. The one time, the most key moment of that era was at the Sun Dome in Tampa. It was the night that, well, I'll go back. I get to the building and I'm walking up this long set of steps to go up into the building. And I'm looking at it from the outside and I'm to myself, and I was by myself. To myself, I'm thinking, this looks like exactly like the Miami Arena that used to be down here. I said, am I in Miami? I'm just thinking of how exact this building looks to the Miami Arena. And I was thinking about that. And I'm walking up these steps, and the steps are really, really high. It's like walking up like the Rocky movie where he runs up to this thing and does the
yep.
thing. It was like that, except it was slow motion because there was people just walking up. And here I am. I got my lens in my pants. I got my body in the thing. I got 15 rolls of film somewhere on me. And here's what's scary. I get about halfway up the steps and these people are coming back down. And one lady's got a camera, like a Sure Shot kind of camera, like a whatever, with a little zoom lens on it, like this big, right? And I go, "You're leaving already?" And she goes, "No, they made me put my camera back in the car." I go, "God, oh, jeez, this is going to suck so bad." Here I am. Not only do I have the big camera, I'm
Right.
sneaking it in. I got it hidden all over the place, right? To this day, I wish I knew the lady's name. I'd like to send her a thank you card because it was the weirdest thing in the world. I get up there and I'm 3 people away from getting shoved down to the bottom of the stairs.
Yeah.
And I got to get in here because Bill told me what was going to be happening. Boom, boom, boom. Walk of death. I get up there, and the very first thing I say to the lady that's patting people down, a black lady patting people down, I'll never forget her face. Very pretty lady. And I go, "Am I in Miami?" And out of my head, I came out, "Am I in Miami?" And she goes, "What?" I go, "This building is exactly a replica of Miami Arena. Did you know that?" And I don't know why I said all that stupid shit. I'm just trying to throw her away from patting me. Like that's
Yeah.
going to work, right?
Right.
She didn't touch me. We got in a conversation about something that wasn't very long. It was the weirdest thing in the world. They didn't have metal detectors then either. I don't think they had a metal detector at all. Otherwise, they would have found me. But they were just patting people down, right? I got through there with all that stuff.
Wow.
And it was the most unusual thing in the world. And I just came out with that. When I saw her face, for some reason, I just decided to try to divert.
Yeah.
It freaking worked. And I'm telling you what, that night, and of course, they got their people looking too to see, because they knew we were shooting somehow in all these places getting pictures. But they, so I'm like, now I got through the first step. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting up in the risers. I'm like, however far the ring's down there, I'm getting good pictures still because I wasn't at the nosebleeds. I was in good seat. So here's what's happening that night. That was the night that they had a Piper's Pit, and Andre the Giant turned on Hulk Hogan that night at Piper's Pit. That was the infamous where he
Oh,
pulled
wow.
his necklace
Yeah.
and okay. So I'm in, but I'm just in. I don't know when this Piper's Pit's going to happen. I have no idea. And those tapings back then went a long time. It wasn't a pay per view; it was a taping of some type. But they had all kinds of break. They had all kinds of you never know nothing. Then they make announcements here and there. So it was like a 5 hour taping for a 2 hour thing.
Yeah.
So I'm taking pictures, and I'm at this part of the arena. I'm over here on, say, the west side, and all of a sudden they say, "All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a little break, and then we'll come back with Piper's Pit." And I'm looking around and go, "Where did they do Piper's Pit?" I had no idea. Where it was on the floor, way down in the other corner, not anywhere near I was. So now I got my big old camera out, and I'm sitting in the stands like this, taking pictures. I don't have to walk. I'm not walking around at all, but now I got to walk. I can't shoot it from where I was because the angle wasn't right and it was too far away. So I go, oh God, this is going to suck so bad. So I packed everything back up. Now here's the key. I've shot 5, 6, 7 rolls of film already. I put them in a certain pocket, and there's a reason for that. Put them in. I had a jacket on. I put them in this pocket. I had all my unused film over here. This comes into play later. So I decide I'm going to make the walk of death down again to get caught. And I put all my stuff back away, and I put my lens underneath my jacket thing, and I walk all the way around the arena. Now I can't go on the floor because you got to have a floor ticket to get down there at all. So I'm up on the first walkway that goes around,
Yeah.
but I'm directly above Piper's Pit, about 20 feet away, 25 feet up. And I get to the rail first because a lot of people, once they realize where Piper's Pit is, they start going and standing on the rail. Well, number one, that's a good thing because I got there early, so I stood there quick. The other good thing is everybody was covering me. It was kind of cool.
Yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
was like I was like in the blinds, right? So Hogan comes out and they do whatever thing. Piper comes out and does it and that. And I got the only shots that when Hogan got turned on by Andre and got the blood and the thing and the necklace ripped off and all that. And I just sat there and went as fast as I could. Luckily I just put a new roll of film in. I think I shot 30 pictures of it, but that
Wow.
was cool. And that was during my time of our time of having to hide and go up. Now the interesting, so I'm through phase 2 now, or phase 3 of getting in and getting stuff done. I already made it through the black lady that was so nice to me for whatever reason, and the people inside. And I got back up to my chair. The main event's coming up, right? Now they didn't really care about the main event. I don't know what it was, but they didn't care about it anyway. And I was going to leave early. I started to get up and move. Some guy comes over to me and he goes, "Can you come with me?" And I go, "Oh God, geez, all the work I just did. Oh my God, I can't believe I made it through here, but all the work I just did, what's going to happen?" They took me down to the office of the arena. And I got got my lens and my camera just hanging. Now I'm caught, right? And they took me down to the office of the arena and they said something about WWF has strict policy against da da da. I go, "Really?" I go, "I didn't know that." I didn't tell them who I was doing. No, nothing. I told them nothing. So I said, "I didn't know that." I said, "I just came in." I said, "Oh man." He goes, "I need to take your film."
Oh,
And I go, I said, and I remembered that I had, this is the best part about this, because sometimes I think ahead in a good way. I had 5 rolls, no, I had 7 rolls of film left because I shot most of them. I had my shot ones over here in my jacket pocket zipped up. And I was doing that on purpose, number one, to not mix them up. Number two, in case somebody said anything, I would say, okay, whatever. And I didn't think it would happen. I really didn't. It never happened for a year and a half before this, right? So I said, "Oh God," I said, "I shot 5 rolls or 7, whatever it was." And he goes, "I got to take them." He goes, "I hate to do it." He said, "But I got to take them. I got to turn them in." I go, "You're not taking my camera, right? Because I'm leaving." He goes, "No." So I'm playing the part. I take out the film and I hand it to him. I go, "Here, sorry."
Oh,
Little tabs were sticking out and everything. Like these people obviously didn't know what film looked like when it was shot, right? So I walked out of there and I was so scared. I couldn't get out of there fast enough. So I had all my exposed film over here. So I got to send it in and no one ever knew the better. But it was, that was an interesting night for sure.
what a great story! And that was kind of the kickoff, or not the kickoff, but near the beginning of the build to WrestleMania 3. With Hogan and Andre. What did
Yep.
that feel like experiencing that time period? And getting into the WrestleMania 3 mode at that time.
That's before too much of the cartoonish thing started happening and everything was good with wrestling back then. I mean, Hogan was number one, obviously. Andre, I mean, I've seen Andre in person. He used to come down to wrestling. He used to come down to the West Palm Beach Auditorium when he'd tour down here for wrestling from Florida for a week. And so once every 2 or 3 years, I would see Andre in person. It was so much cool stuff. But to have that main event and that angle that they ran, and for me to actually be able to capture that was amazing. I thought that was the coolest thing. Bill was probably doing cartwheels when he got those
Yeah.
pictures because I told him the whole story about how they took my film, but I gave him the unexposed and how I snuck in. And of course, he was like, "Oh, that's good." It's not easy to sneak a barrel full of stuff in, but I
No,
did
no.
it. But that was, yeah, Bret Hart and that whole era. I've always loved wrestling as a fan, but to be watching that go on and Andre getting slammed by Hogan, you even though it wasn't the first time it's been done, but it was just awesome, awesome time to be a fan for sure. I wish I could. I've never done a WrestleMania. I've done pay-per-views. Uh, I've been to a couple WrestleManias down here. I don't make it a point to go to them for
Yeah.
whatever reason, but I've done a lot of WCW pay-per-views, a lot, and I've done uh, WWF pay per views back in the day, Royal Rumble, things like that, but never did a WrestleMania. And then George Napolitano came in after Bill left. And before he came in, I thought, oh, maybe I'll get some of the assignments that Bill always went to, right? And all of a sudden, I found out Napolitano's with him. Now I go, oh, crap. So he's the new Bill Apter, so he took everything. So I had no WrestleMania experience after that at all.
Any
But
experiences with George over the years?
I haven't. I Again, he was one of the photographers that would be around the ring. I barely talked to him because we just didn't. I talked to Bill Otten a lot because we were like Florida buddies.
Hmm.
In fact, in the day, it was great because I've had probably over my years, I probably had like 60 covers, um, in and mostly because Florida during the 80s was a hotbed of wrestling, and even though even though there was a lot of wrestling going on, our coverage, the coverage in the magazine would always center around Florida, and a lot of it was on the cover with Dusty and Superstar Billy Graham and the Briscoes or Jack Briscoe when he was world champion. I mean, everybody you could think of back then was cover worthy. And but Bill Otten and I used to have a kind of a in out of ring friendly rivalry. Um, Back then the magazines would pay $10 for black and white pictures that go inside the magazine
Hmm.
and $35 for cover, which was color. And you'd have to shoot color film, but then it got to be you shoot slides, and then but it was always film based of some type. But it was $35 for a cover. So obviously, if you get 4 or 5 or 6 pictures in a magazine, you're going to make more money than a cover.
Yeah.
But there was something about the cover that was just prestigious, right? So the matches would always basically be about the same Monday through Sunday all over Florida. They'd be about the same. So Bill Otten would have the area from Orlando, Jacksonville, whatever, three towns up there that he would do. I would do Fort Lauderdale, Miami, and West Palm. but not all the same, not every single week that I'd be in one place. So we would always have a little friendly competition, like when the magazines come out. I'd call him up and go, "I got the cover this time, and you didn't." and he would get the cover sometime, and then I would have the inside shot. So I would make more money on that match, but he would have the cover for it. But so we always had our little rivalry going. But never really talked to Jimmy Suzuki that much. Um, I never really. It's funny. I wasn't being antisocial, but we didn't talk. You get around the ring and you get busy and you do
Everybody's different
whatever.
thing.
Yeah.
How about the WWF photographers? Any interactions with Steve Taylor or Tom Buchanan?
Not really. No, because whenever I was there, we were on when we were allowed to do TV around the ring. We would be on the hard on the side facing the hard camera, so that one corner would be our corner. So me and three other Japanese photographers or whatever would be in that corner
Hmm.
and doing the pictures. Steve Taylor and whoever else was doing was always on the other side, out of camera, for whatever reason. They wanted us. I think they wanted us on camera to show how exciting the matches were and that they had press coverage. Because back then you used flash, and it didn't bother the cameras and all that, but it would be a moment for people to be able to see
Yeah.
activity going on. They told us even if the match is boring and there's a lull, they said don't just sit there and do this. Be active, hold the camera up, do something. Just act like you're participating in what's going on. Um, but they wanted us too to stay down and not run around like idiots.
Yeah.
But I didn't really interact with the other photographers and the WWF whatever. I remember one time they were looking for a photographer to tour with the WWF or E, and I didn't apply for it because it said we're looking for college graduate photographer, or whatever. And I think they wanted more of a college graduate, that they wanted an experienced photographer.
Hmm.
And I was one, but I wasn't the other. So I didn't apply, but it would have been fun. I was looking forward to traveling and doing stuff with them and getting paid regularly instead of whenever I submitted things. But yeah, I always envied their job
Yeah.
because they got all the cool stuff, you know.
Right. Well, you were there with them. You know what I mean? So that's all
Yeah.
that matters. And you told that great story about the Piper's Pit. Obviously, the Stone Cold story. Were there other big moments that come to mind when you think of your time at WWF shows doing the photography?
Um, WWF show. Oh, I was. I, it's funny. I don't. In my mind, I thought it was when Slaughter turned, but it wasn't. And let me hit my camera here. Hold on. I have to cut this part out, right?
That's fine.
Um, I I was I went to a show when we had to sneak our camera in at the Miami Arena, and a friend of mine at the time, Bobby Rogers, he ran an FOW organization down here. Um, I got an FOW story too, which is kind of cool. He Bill Apter always sent two tickets, so I had two tickets to this Superstars of Wrestling taping or whatever it was, and just so happened to be our tickets weren't up high; they were on the first level, and we were directly across from the hard camera. So we were like the green shirt guy almost, except a little farther back, right? Not right on the ring. But I had to sneak my camera in that night, and my friend Bobby Rogers came in with me as a second ticket to help me. So I gave him some of the film, and I had some of the film, and we got in, sat down, and I'm going, oh God, we're right in the middle of everything. How are we going to get away with this? So all night long, whenever I'd reach up to take a picture, he would lean forward and do whatever. So nobody from that area where they were kind of stationed, I guess, over there would see. So all night long we did that. I said, okay. And he'd lean forward. So he was covering for me the whole night. Now, the worst part about this, I don't know if you know anything about Bobby Rogers, but he used to wrestle too. And he ran the organization. And one of the things he liked to do is color his hair. And it was normally platinum blonde, but he decided to make it purple because he was doing some kind of gimmick with purple hair. I don't remember what it was. So here I am sitting next to a guy with purple hair, trying to hide,
Right.
taking pictures. But that night, Hogan, I mean, I'm sorry, Slaughter was a bad guy that night. And in my mind, I was thinking, was that the night he turned? But it wasn't. It was after that. But you talk about a monumental time.
Hmm.
I was taking photos when he was actually the bad guy, which was very interesting because before that, you only knew him as, I mean, that'd be like Ricky Steamboat turned into a bad guy, you know.
Right.
But that was an interesting night because of I had the glaring hair over here trying to block me and take
Yeah.
pictures. But trying to think if there's anything else for uh, WWF. Mm, Hogan and Andre did that stuff. Nothing really with that. I've had different situations with different organizations. I was at the 1987 card for CWF with the infamous Luger and Brody cage match
Oh,
down in
yes.
Fort Lauderdale. I was shooting pictures that night, and that was interesting. Fonzie was a referee, and Bill Alfonso's one of my people that always hooked me up and was monumental in helping me along the way in different ways. J.J. Dillon, Sir Oliver Humperdinck, God rest his soul, he was so nice, and Bill Alfonso, those three. And Fonzie still to this day, I see him all the time when I go to Tampa and big hugs and stuff. He's a good guy. He's referee that night, and that was a big controversial night for sure. Um, Luger didn't want to. Luger didn't want to sell, or Brody didn't want to sell. Luger was afraid. Blah blah blah. There's so many stories of why and who knows what. But
Yeah.
Luger had only been in the business for a little while at that point,
Right.
and I don't know what stories you heard about it and all, but it was interesting to be a part of it that night and be around there and just seeing what was going on. Like, what's going on here? You know, I wasn't afraid of anybody coming out and attacking me because it was a cage, which was good, but
Yeah.
it was a fun night. I think of what else here. Um, XWF was part of that. That was fun. Um, I was there for when Hogan turned into the NWO in 1996, five, whatever it was, in Daytona. The
You were there.
infamous night. I was there doing photos that night too.
Wow.
And so, it's funny because I've been a part of little monumental kind of things. And as a wrestling fan, it's great. But as a normal, it's like, oh, okay. It's not like you did the Grand Prix of Monaco or anything.
Right.
But we look at it as exciting stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was Bash of the Beach, 1996.
That's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a nice building too. I love Daytona.
Wow.
But that was an interesting night. And to hear all the backstories afterwards from all the interviews that have been going on from the people that were, there, like Nash and all that. It's interesting to hear what was going on behind while I was out front. But
What
yeah,
was
I'm
that
trying to think.
experience like with all the trash being thrown in and
Oh
yeah,
man, yeah, I didn't get hit with anything, luckily, but that was wow. Yeah, I there was a lot of there was a lot of animosity that night,
yeah.
a lot of heat. I'm telling you what, I don't you don't get that now
Hmm.
at all. Everything has changed so much now. It's different. Everybody knows that it's a work and whatever else. And even so, I'm surprised that they're actually able to keep excitement going, even though people know it's a work, to keep the excitement going when something does happen. But it's not at all like it was. We're talking about white heat back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, people really they believed, and maybe they had more time to brew things too.
Hmm.
They were on TV all the time and actually able to brew the situations and build it up even more than they're able to now sometimes. But
You
it's great to
still
be part of that.
you still follow the current product?
I do. I watch AEW, WWE most of the time. NXT I love. NXT is just great. They're just trying hard, and it's so great to see the people move up and get their due, like Sol Ruka the other night coming into the main roster.
Yeah.
Um, that's that's the great thing about it. It's like baseball. It's like watching somebody on a single A team or a college team make it to the big leagues.
Right.
It's the same kind of thing for me. In fact, back in the day I mean, I've been in Florida doing photos at Indies and all that for years too. CW, EC, I've done ECW down here, of course, at the Fort Lauderdale Stadium or Fort Lauderdale War Memorial. Um, uh, WWE, WWF, NWA, CCW down here. But back in the day, I mean, I've seen where MVP started down here. I was doing photos when he was at the racquetball courts down here.
Oh wow.
Um, so another interesting thing I was able to do. It was 1980. In fact, I got this picture too. I got to find it. 1987. No, it wasn't 87. What was it? 90s. Hold on, let me think real quick. 2000. It was early 2000. I think it was 2003 or four. We had a Bill Apter called me and he said, "Hey," he said, "Hulk Hogan is the icon of wrestling. He's without a doubt the icon of wrestling." We had there was an issue of Sports Illustrated that was out, whatever year it was, and it was the 35th anniversary of Sports Illustrated. And Muhammad Ali was on the cover because he's the icon of boxing. So to commemorate the 35th anniversary of Sports Illustrated, they had Muhammad Ali pose on the front cover, and they posed it a certain way. And I'll show you. Bill Apter wanted to do the same thing on Hogan for the 25th anniversary of PWI. Number one, when he said that, I was like, God, I've been doing pictures before PWI even started with them, and now here I am 25 years later talking to Bill Apter about this same thing. But PWI was great too because when it came out, because all of the photos inside were color, so they paid more, which was good. So that was an awesome thing, but still wasn't enough to But it was fun. But he said, "Let me hook it up with Hulk, and I want you to go up to his house in Tampa and do." Now I think, no, I drove up for this one. It's about 3.5 hours, whatever. But he wanted to do the story in the 25th anniversary. He wanted Hulk to be on the cover, and he sent me the cover of the Sports Illustrated, and I go, well, "That's weird. It's a weird cover, a depiction of the Muhammad Ali." And I got it, and I go, "Okay, that's what we're going to do, right?" So I go up to the house. He was when he was on Bel Air in that home that I guess when
Yeah.
they were filming the infamous TV series, that was where he was living then. And never forget, I got there, and I had his cell phone at the time. Well, I didn't have his cell phone; I had his number. And I contacted him. I said, I'm in town. I said, I'm about 10 minutes from your house. He goes, "Oh, brother." He was out to lunch with someone, and he said, "I'll be there in about half hour." He said, "Just go on to the house." He said, "Brutus is there, Beefcake."
Okay.
I go, "Okay." So I go in. I'm talking to Brutus, and blah blah blah, and just hanging out and looking around. Nick was there. No, I'm sorry, Nick wasn't there. I think his daughter was there, Brooke, but she was walking. I didn't know. Again, that was before they even were big deals. But I just always remember Brooke was down because I was looking downstairs and she pulled in a car and all that. And I thought, this is pretty cool. So Hulk shows up, and I showed him. I said, "Here's what we're going to do. Bill's talked to you about putting you on the cover for the 25th anniversary," and he's all excited about it. "Oh, this is going to be cool." And he goes, "What does it look like?" I showed him. This is the Muhammad Ali one. I don't know if you can see this at all.
Oh yes.
But he's holding a magazine of himself. I think that was I don't know if that was his first cover or what. I don't know. But he's holding that and blocking part of his face. That's the key here.
Mm-hmm.
They want to replicate this with Hogan. So I showed him that, and he goes, "What? What? What is this? I got to talk to Apter." And he was kind of joking around, but I don't know if he was or not, because he's like, "I'm blocking half my face." So I, talk to him, blah, blah, blah. And we shoot the pictures and get it. So this is how it came out.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's the 25th anniversary of PWI. So it replicated that exactly, basically. but he was taken aback by it, like, "You're covering half my face, brother."
Right.
That
Oh,
was interesting. But yeah, he'll forever be the icon. That's for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Not many bigger than Hulk.
no, that's for sure. I mean, The Rock, in his own way, yes. I mean, he's huge, huger. I guess that's the word. Maybe more people are involved, maybe more mainstream people. But when you're looking at, I mean, you can only have one real first icon that's just going to live down in history as being the icon, period. And he was a nice guy, too. Um, I'll never forget one time when he was with the NWO. He was, I had my son with me at the time, which I think he was 12, and his friend, because I said, hey, oh, so anyway, he, Hulk was scheduled to do a signing at a car dealership. And this was back before signings were $100 at signature and all that.
Yeah.
He was doing signings at a car dealership that his friend owned, a new dealership in Port St. Lucie or somewhere in Stewart, which isn't near Tampa, but it's near me. And so he made his way down here and did a private, well, private, I guess. He did a public signing and posed for pictures and all that kind of stuff. All the people to get this grand opening of this car dealership for his buddy, right? So Apter said, hey, I need you to go up there, blah, blah, blah. I said, can I bring my son? He goes, yeah, sure. So I go up there, and it was great because Hulk had only met me maybe a couple times before that. But you know how those guys remember you. If you've done right by them at all,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how many years it's been. Humperdinck used to always say to me, and all the guys from down in Florida down in that time period, they really respected what me and Bill Otten especially were doing.
Mm.
Pete Letterberg was another photographer down here, and of course Donald DeLeon. That's the guy's name,
Oh,
Donald. Between us, we had Florida on the map as far as people that weren't down in Florida that were seeing the magazines all over the country and all over the world, I guess. Wrestlers would always, especially the guys I talked to a lot, would always come up to us, and Luna was one too. Luna, God rest her soul, she was so appreciative of me, especially because I was good friends with her, and what we did for putting Florida wrestlers on the map, because it enabled them to be out there more and to get more bookings and do this and that. So Hulk, those people remember that kind of thing, and so Hulk was already a big deal at the time. And I'm thinking, well, I'm going to get there and I'm going to find where he is and do pictures of him, hold my camera up in the air and do pictures of him and all the people around him and all that. So I walk up to the main lobby, and the doors hadn't opened yet, and there was like 100 people outside already. It was a half hour before they were supposed to start. And all car dealerships have glass rooms everywhere. It's all glass. So I'm standing out, and I walked in with my son and his friend, and I see Hulk in one of the glass offices, right, over that way. And he's sitting at the desk with some guy in there, and the door's closed, like he's trying to buy a car or something, right? So I'm talking to a guy out there I'm in there. Obviously, I'm in there ahead of time.
yeah.
I just kind of walked in, and the guy's stopping me, some guy. He goes, oh, yeah. I said, yeah, I'm here to do pictures of Hulk. And I just pointed over there. And Hulk kind of looks over at the same time I was pointing. He goes, comes out the door. And he goes, he's good. Come on in. So I'm like, number one, my son marked out right then
Yeah.
because I know Hulk Hogan, right? This is so
Right.
cool, right? That was cool for me. So his buddy now Hulk had his little black beard deal going on and all that. And I come into the office and he shakes my hand, blah, blah, blah. And I talking to him and all that. And, can I get a picture? Got a picture of my son with his friend and Hulk. And of course, I was the king at that point, right? But that kind of stuff is really cool. I mean, Hulk was just the nicest guy in the world. And I'd only interacted with him 3 times in my life. And the house thing was way before that, I guess, because he turned and went to NWO after the 2004. Yeah. So it had been a while, but those guys remember if you do right by them. If you screw them over and you treat them bad or act like an idiot, they're not going to be so nice. But
Yeah.
I was blessed to never step on anybody's toes along the way. So
Exactly.
I was never banned from ringside independently, just overall when they kicked us away.
Yeah.
But on the WWE on WWF side, we weren't allowed around the ring for the longest time, so we had to sit up in the thing and sneak in. And then they started just allowing me Bill Otten, and a couple of Japanese people around the ring, and we were able to do that for a while, and especially at the house shows.
Hmm.
But then they got to a point where they didn't want us around the ring at TV at all. They put us up in the hard camera area, but they still allowed us around the ring at house shows when they did house shows,
Hmm.
which was fun. The good thing about being up in the hard camera area when you don't have to sneak in, they put you in the hard camera area. There's nobody sitting around you because there's two cameras up there and they have the whole section blocked off. You're in the first riser and you're shooting down. The best thing about that is as I got older, my knees were appreciating the heck out of that, not having to be around the ring.
True.
So I was getting good pictures up there, just firing away, and taking a bunch of nice shots. But it takes the fun away from it when you're not down there, though.
Yeah.
It takes that part of it away.
Let's
So
talk about the magazines. Obviously, Pro Wrestling Illustrated was, arguably the biggest one that was around at the, during that time period. And you had PWI, you had Inside Wrestling, like you mentioned. The Wrestler was another big one. Wrestling Review, New Wave Wrestling. There were so many different magazines over the years. Obviously, Bill Apter would eventually come out with Wow
yeah,
magazine, which was that nice thick color, publication, and then, of course, the PWI almanacs, which would come out annually, and people would really look forward to those on the newsstand. And what's your take on where we've gone? We've gone from having so many magazines as wrestling fans, for options, to now the digital age, where now it's all websites and social media, and there's maybe just a magazine here and there. That magic is kind of lost for the new wrestling fans, because I feel like I grew up at a perfect time where you leave your mom for a little while and maybe go go in the magazine aisle for an hour while she's doing the shopping, and see
yeah.
what they got. I always looked forward to that, and I was a big magazine guy. So what's your take on that?
I'm the same way with newspapers too.
Yeah.
Uh, when newspapers stopped being really published a lot, we'd get a weekly or a daily paper, and I love it. I can't stand reading off the internet. Um, it's kind of the thing now. But with wrestling magazines, yeah, you got far less of them out there starting years ago. And I remember going to the newsstand. A lot of grocery stores didn't have all the magazines. I think Walmart's or whatever the big store was back then, sometimes they would have all of them. All of our issues were out. Sports Review, PWI, everything. And then Napolitano's magazines would be out. The WOW magazines, like you said, with Bill Apter would be out. And like Barnes and Noble, things like that. You'd see them all there and you're like, oh, wow, this is so cool. And I remember because I'd shot for Bill Apter when he did the WOW magazine too. I shot some stuff for him too. Forgot about that. Yeah, that was a good publication. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's sad that they went by the wayside. And yeah, the fans, it's a different experience now. And of course, the people now don't know what they're missing either.
Right.
It's like you tell them, and they think you're an old person. If you tell them, oh, I used to be in pictures, you get them at the thing, and why? You just turn on your computer and look at the pictures.
Yeah.
It's not the same. And I'm old school, like with the newspapers and everything. And I don't like reading a lot. I don't have a lot of books that I read, but I enjoyed a hard copy of something like that. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, as
Um,
a fan at that time, it would always be a treat when I would see the PWI 500. If I stumbled across that, I'd
yeah,
always get excited. Or for WWF, when they would come out with the Spotlight magazines, and it
yep,
would be a special feature on a certain superstar. Those were always the two that I was out looking for, and when you found them, it was a big moment. It was nice.
definitely. Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to different arenas and venues and all these places you're traveling to over the years, did you have any favorite venues to shoot out of?
Actually, well, the auditorium holds a special place down here in West Palm Beach because I was there. Well, let me think here 70, 75, 12 years, almost every week. That's a lot of time. Man, it's funny you sit and think about how many times you did something. But that was my favorite place because that's where I started. That's where I stepped over the rail. That's where I got my most photos published from is that. But one of my other favorites, I would have to say, um, the War Memorial Auditorium down here in Fort Lauderdale. And the only reason it was a favorite is because of iconic matches that I did for ECW and for PWF, the Dusty Rhodes promotion that went for a couple of years. Um, those were special times. ECW was awesome at the time, and to be part of that, I guess every time I say part of it, it's not like I did anything, but I was part of it, and that's and that was a not a hole in the wall building. It was a neat building, and it was kind of rectangular and not real round, or it had a weird stage and whatever else. But yeah, I liked that building a lot because the backstage area was really accessible, which I like. I was able to get in and out of the curtain area and stuff. So there's reasons that you like certain venues. Um, I like the James L. Knight Center was interesting down here in Miami. I did Miami. I'm sorry, I did Clash of Champions and different things down there.
Mhm.
That was an interesting place. Very clean inside. Um, and I'll never forget one of the reasons this is my favorite arena too. That was during the time when we had to sneak our camera. Okay, I did WCW down there too, but it was also they had WWF cards running during the time we had to sneak our cameras in, right? So there, I don't know if they were. I think it was towards the end of when we had to sneak our cameras in because I was actually sitting on the seventh row with a camera and nobody said anything to me.
Oh,
But it's interesting because I was on the seventh row. I wasn't in the riser, so I wasn't able to get all the pictures that I really wanted to get as good as I could as I was up higher. But the great thing about that night, that was during the time when they weren't getting a lot of photos from their photographers because of the ban or whatever. I'll never forget that night, the main night that they were there. They were doing, I don't know if they were doing TV or not. I can't remember. But afterwards, and like I said, I got $10 a shot, right? I made more money in a half hour outside the arena than I did inside the whole night. Because what happened is the way the Miami Arena, or I'm sorry, the way the Night Center was set up, there was a back area where it had a ramp that they pulled their cars down, and there was two rows of cars, and people would have to move cars to get out and all that. That's where the guys would park.
hmm.
Now it was accessible, but no one really knew about it too much because it was kind of in the back.
Right.
I went out that way when I left. I got more pictures, more money that I made that night of the guys getting in and out of their doing their car thing with their bags in their hand, with
Yeah.
their regular street clothes on, because that was the hot thing for the magazines back then is to have them outside the ring. I'll never forget that. I made like 10, 20. I think I sold like 35 pictures in a half during a half hour of shooting
Wow.
because whoever it was that was there that night, I don't remember if it was, I think Beefcake was there and it was during that time. But the whole night I'm shooting inside, hardly made any money. But I'm glad, and I only did that because I thought I wonder if I can get pictures of them in the pack somehow.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know the building. I just had parked on a couple blocks away, and I saw that, and I go, "Wow." So I took a chance and I went over there and did it. But yeah, it was interesting.
Thinking outside the box. That's great.
Definitely.
That's what you got to do, and you know, what would you say your greatest challenge has been within the wrestling industry? And then on the flip side of that, most rewarding for you?
Hmm. Well, it goes without saying. I think the greatest challenge was during those periods of a few years that we had to keep bringing our stuff and sneaking it in
Yeah.
and not get caught, and try to get the job done. And a couple of times I felt really obligated to do it, even though, and Bill always said, "Hey, if you don't get in, you don't get in." They flew me to Tampa that time that I did that Piper's Pit. They flew me to Tampa. They flew me to Daytona, I think, when Hogan turned. But I was around the ring for that.
Yeah.
But times like that where there's so much invested in what I'm trying to get done. So those were challenging to me, and I won every time. I'm so thankful that I never, except that one time I got caught, but I gave him new film. But that was the main challenge. Me getting around the ring wasn't a challenge because I didn't know I what to do except I just stepped over that one night. So that in itself wasn't a challenge. That was you know what? That was probably my best accomplishment is actually doing that because I don't know if Apter, see, for some reason, I don't know if Apter had, it seemed like he would have pull with the office where they'd say, hey, this guy's my guy. But I really hadn't been shooting for him at all at that point.
Yeah.
So he couldn't really say, hey, this guy's good, whatever. So it probably would have been a while before I would have actually got in with me sending a lot of stuff up and then him probably marrying me in. But because I was really nothing to Bill Apter except Nat's friend, um, I think that was probably my best accomplishment is that first night where I just stepped over the rail and just hunkered down and never moved. And from then on, I was able to roam around the ring and do what I wanted to do because I felt comfortable.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of no, XWAs. One of the coolest night. It's not really an accomplishment. One of the coolest nights I did was in middle 2000s. They had a thing with the World Wrestling Legends. It was in Orlando. I think it was at the Hard Rock Hotel or Hard Rock, whatever it is up there, that establishment. That was the night that this was cool. I don't know if it's an accomplishment, but it was cool. I always remember this. That night they had Bobby Heenan was there, and that was when he was getting sick, I think. Bruno was there, Sabisco, Cornette. I don't even know who promoted it. World Wrestling Legends was the name of the show, but I don't know who promoted it. But I remember being, and I was backstage and the whole thing there. I was actually able to go in and do what I had to do. That was cool. And so I don't know if you call it an accomplishment, but it was kind of a cool thing. And it was a one-off. I don't even know if that the promotion even existed after that night. I don't even know. But I know it was a historic thing with I mean Bobby Heenan, I got to meet him and meet Bruno, and I'd never met them before. And I
Wow.
wasn't really a Bruno fan because I didn't know that wrestling. Um, Everybody I talked to, my friend Craig Cohen, he's a Bruno fan, and we talk all the time about that. And he's about the Northeast because he was from the Northeast, and I'm not. But I never really got into the Bruno aura. But to meet him was awesome because just because of who he is, who he
Yeah.
was, or whatever. Um, and Craig Cohen, that's another good friend of mine, Craig Cohen, and he was business partners with the late Howard Brody,
Yes.
the ex NWA, I guess X or whatever. He was the NWA president for a while. They had a promotion called Wild Women of Wrestling down here, and it was late '80s into the early '90s, and that's where Luna was with them. And Luna always appreciated me, but always she was the nicest person. If he didn't cross her, Wendy Richter, Malaya Hasaka, I think, was with them. But that was a fun time. Able covering matches for them for the magazine too, and for them for their publicity. But Howard and Craig are both, they were such good people. And Craig's still around. I still talk to him all the time. He's down in Fort Lauderdale. But yeah, that's not really a monumental time when you talk about monumental time, but that's just one of those things that I thought of again because to be part of something that tried to be launched that was destined to do really good. I think that was probably one of the earliest in what do you call it, incantations or the start of where women's wrestling really should be. Because
Right.
Luna, as you probably know, she didn't like the direction WWF was going with the women, with the divas and the bra and panties matches and the pudding and all that. She wanted to be a real wrestler in the ring, and
Yeah.
she got a lot of flack from that. Her and Sable had problems or whatever up there, but she was. It was one of those situations where this was her vehicle, and I think she might have been part of the business owner too of this, the WWOW, but I think she was. I think she was in there with that, with Howard and Craig. But she just appreciated the work of women wrestling, and I think that's where it really kind of started. Um, that women were being recognized instead of Glow, that whole thing going
Yeah.
on. But and some of the people from Glow came over to this. I think uh, what was her name? Um,
Hollywood.
Tina Moretti.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I think she came over to. I think she did. I might be wrong, but if she didn't, she should have been. So
yeah. A lot of great people actually ended up coming out of Glow. You know, like Ivory, like you said, and
yeah,
yeah, it was it was a different time back then, obviously, and now they've kind of brought back a newer version of Glow in recent years, which was interesting. I don't know if you caught that, but
I I'm not from. I think I've heard, but I've never seen a show. Is it on YouTube?
it probably is now. Yeah, this was
Okay,
probably about 2 years ago, maybe something like that.
okay.
But and then you had, of course, you were there for Abdullah the Butcher, Dusty Rhodes, the
Oh,
Taskmaster Kevin Sullivan, and Funk. It was Davie, Florida, 1998, Fatal Four Way. Why don't you tell us that story?
that was an FOW Bobby Rogers Purple Hair production. Um, a legitimate. I don't know. My phone keeps it's texting me all these times. I got to turn my phone off. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Um, hadn't done anything until now. Um, that was a Bobby Rogers production, FOW, a legitimate attendance, and I can't remember what the figure was, but whatever they posted, it was 6,000 or 5,000. It was at a rodeo arena, covered, but it was a rodeo arena, sawdust on the floor, whatever. They'd have matches there, quite a bit, maybe every couple months or whatever for a while. Um, he ran good cards. They went long, but he ran good cards. But that night was so fabulous. It was all four of them, like you said, and it was a falls count anywhere. And one of the things that was interesting, if you go back and look at the tape, it wasn't in the ring very long, obviously. I don't remember who won eventually, but they had a couple things going on there. One, because it was a rodeo arena, at the far end by the dressing rooms, way away from the ring, they had a thing that you had to walk up steps to get up. It's like a scorekeeper's little booth or like a crow's nest little thing, I guess they called it. I don't know, for rodeoing. They made their way up there. And then there was a pickup truck, an old pickup truck on the other side. And Bobby had bought it, I guess, or something. I don't know. It was cheap. It was just a junker truck. Um, they utilized that and made their way over there and busted each other into the thing. And Terry Funk, I think it was Terry Funk, actually tried to start it and tried to run over Dusty or whatever. It was wild. So I'm walking around the arena doing the whole thing, capturing pictures. But that was fun. That was but legitimate. The amount of people, whatever it was that they said they had. I can't remember who else was on the card. Norman Smiley, I think, was on the card because he started down here.
Hmm.
Now he's trainer for XWF, um,
NXT.
NXT, and so many people started down here from because I've been doing this forever with all the indies and all down here. Gangrel started down here. He still lives down here. Actually runs a school. Um, Cahagas,
Yep.
Tokyo Monster, good guy. He started. I don't know if he started down here or in the middle, but I've known him forever. Um, MVP, of course, early MVP started, like I said, at the racquetball courts. Mickey James, who was Alexis Leray back then, and you know how you could. I mean, you know how baseball scouts can tell a player. You don't have to look at him do a lot of stuff. You just look at him field two balls, and you know the guy's a player.
Yeah.
Mickey James, she was at the Indian reservation doing indie shows for whoever. I said, this girl is going to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And now look at her. She's gone. Billy Fives, one of my favorite people.
Billy Five.
Billy,
Yeah, he was in the Super 8 tournaments.
yes, he was.
Yeah.
And yes, he was. I never made it to a Super 8. Brandy, I don't know if you remember Brandy Mankiewicz. It was she was one of the mainstays of After magazines for years. And she would be like my contact a lot of times up there for different things. She would always end up, I think she would photograph or she would, I don't know what it was, but I kept on begging her. I said, I want to go to the Super 8 one time, even though it was up in the Northeast, but they didn't want to pay for that. Um, but Brandy was good friends with a lot of people, a lot of indie people down here, like Ron Nemi. Ron Nemi had IPW going down here. I've done several of his shows years ago. Ron Nemi's another good guy. uh, who Scoot Andrews,
Oh yes.
another mainstay. I love that guy so much. Him and Billy Fives, they were just they were ahead of their time, as they say.
Yeah.
When you look at work rate and what they did in the ring and how they just went about what they did.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Now I'm trying to think of. There's one other person. Uh, oh, who was it that started? Well, Norman Smiley, of course.
It's great.
Um,
Steve Kern, another Florida guy, right?
Steve Kern. Yeah, he started down here in CWF,
Mm.
and yeah, him and Mike Graham tag team and whatever. I, it's just amazing to know the amount of people that have come through the state and started in the state and became big deals here and went on to do whatever. Um,
Well, it's funny.
I,
So many people have started in Florida, and now
yeah,
so many people have returned to Florida. It seems
yeah,
to be the place to go. Everybody's living there for wrestling.
that's for sure. And there's no state tax, so it's another good reason.
There you go. All right.
That's another good reason for it. But yeah, I think there's two other guys that I wanted to mention when I was thinking about. I can't recall right now, but yeah, the indie scene down here is still good. You got CCW that runs all the time, Fort Lauderdale and Hollywood and Miami and Vegas and Tennessee or North Carolina, somewhere they run. Um, and they were just actually, I think it was, is it Nikki Hartwell? I might be wrong on the name. There was a girl that just got signed to NXT from the CCW. And Gangrel is one of the head trainers down here
Okay.
with CCW. So he puts out good people. I think Indy Hartwell or no,
Indy Hartwell. Yeah.
is it Indy Hartwell?
There's an Indy Hartwell and there's a Nikki Blackheart.
Nikki Blackheart is the one I think
Yeah.
that got signed. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's it. I don't know why I can't think of it right now. I just saw her at a show in Port St. Lucie the other day with CCW, and it was one of her last matches. But she's going to be starting up with them pretty soon, NXT. So she's good. She's good. But yeah, Gangrel's a good guy, man. He's puts out good quality. He knows what to do, and he
Right.
teaches the right way. So going into NXT, they got to see a lot of people at NXT that aren't obviously that haven't been schooled at all in wrestling, and then they school them. But to come in or to have someone come in that already has good training,
Yeah.
and they got to change some things like they always do.
Sure.
But to have that basis already, it's got to be just such a plus for them.
Yeah.
But
What would you say is the best piece of advice ever given to you? And what advice do you have for somebody who's looking to get into photography?
photography overall,
Yeah.
um, the best piece of advice overall is just be nice to people. Don't if they ask you to do something. I mean, it's like anything, really. I guess if they ask you to do something, if you can do it, do it. Don't turn down things.
Right.
Don't say, "Oh, I can't do that." Figure it out. Um, just be adaptable. Adaptable is the number one thing because in photography, especially in wrestling, but anything, be adaptable. Be ready to do what you have to do to. I mean, several of the times that, like little things I can remember from just weddings. Uh, I'll be doing a reception and it's kind of boring. People are dancing around doing whatever they're doing. I got an hour and a half left. And you see a little kid, and these shots just amaze me all the time when I'm able to get it. I'm sitting across the room and I'm not taking any pictures. I take pictures of the dancing and I sit here and then I see this little, obviously, grandchild of this grandfather, and who knows how long the grandfather is going to be around. You look at those things in a different way when you got the lens and you see an interaction that no one's paying attention to.
Mm.
They're all dancing, having fun. In my mind's eye, I can remember this picture vividly. And I just snapped a picture of this little girl looking up to her granddad, just over there, and no one noticed it. No one paid attention. The grandfather noticed it because he's looking at her and she's looking. The little girl was no more than 4 years old. But when you have a picture like that or you have anything like that, that is just important, to you, knowing it's going to be way important to them then and in 10 years. Um, and back then we supplied albums. Nowadays everything is digital and nobody wants an album anymore with weddings. But when the bride saw that picture in the album, because I decided to put it in there, she didn't. It, I picked the things that go in the album generally. Then I had them pick, but it's a detail. But anyway, that was one of the pictures I put in there next to something else, and she just when she saw it, she started crying. It was like, and I was waiting for her to say he passed away 2 days later or something, but which would have been sad, but would have been even more epic for me to have caught that. And that wasn't the case. He was still alive and all that, but I'm sure he's not around now. It's been 20 years. But that picture will always be there. And so things like that, you just have to be ready and adaptable and just know what you're doing. I mean, especially around the ring with wrestling. I mean, you can't just be an idiot. You can't pull someone's gimmick off the ring,
Right.
get everybody kicked away from the ring.
Yeah.
But be smart. Have eyes around your head, all around you. So, and what was the other thing? I'm sorry, you asked me about.
That's right. Just advice for somebody that's looking to maybe get into photography.
Oh, shoot, just shoot everything, everything. With digital now, it's less expensive to shoot everything because you don't have to print anything. Um, God, I feel old when I say that. Back in the day, print. But yeah, no film. God, those nights at WWF up in the stands, 15, 20 rolls of film. Every 36 pictures, I got to rewind, and
Yes.
get ready and stuff. Those are the days, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, just shoot everything. And digital is very forgiving a lot of times, so you don't see mistakes you might make, and you can correct them in Photoshop and all that kind of stuff. So it kind of takes away a little bit of the expertise that you really need.
Yeah.
But you should learn not to have to correct everything you do. Learn how to do it right, and just get good. Is that a term? Get good at what you do.
Absolutely.
Shoot everything, no matter what it is. If someone asks you to shoot their wedding, if you want to charge them, fine. If you don't, hopefully they have a real pro there too. You don't want to be the first time doing anything.
Right.
But don't say no. Just do it.
And real quick, let's just talk Mount Rushmore. If you could chime in your inner fan, who would your Mount Rushmore of pro wrestling be, as far as wrestlers go? And then your Mount Rushmore of the managers of wrestling over the years.
Oh my gosh. Well, managers. Mount Rushmore's 4, isn't it? I would say just because he was such a cool guy and drew so much heat all the time, and nobody's going to remember who he is except us old people. And you're not old, but you'll know anyway because you're an expert. Sir Oliver Humperdinck. Nowadays, I guess you can put him in even though he's an advocate, has to be Paul Heyman.
Yeah.
He's done so much for this industry, and in all levels. But as a manager, whatever they want to call him, he would be second. Jim Cornette, awesome.
Oh, without a doubt.
You can't get. You can listen to him do interviews or not interviews, but interviews, whatever. You can promos, and he'll go on for a 5, 6, 8 minute promo. Nothing's written. And he never stumbles over anything at all. He goes in and it's all one take and he just does it. And he's so eloquent in what he does. I just love that guy.
Yeah.
Who else? Yeah. Humperdinck. You have to cut this part out because I can't think this long. Humperdinck. Trying to think of who else. Bobby Heenan, and that transfers over to his announcing too. We'll call that being a manager announcer.
Sure.
Because as a manager and announcer, he was top notch again.
Yeah.
So those are my 4. Wrestling wise, Barry Windham. Obviously we're not talking about wrestling. We're talking about attraction, the person,
Yeah.
butts in the seats,
Yep.
popularity, whatever. The whole ball of wax.
Exactly. It doesn't have to just be technical,
Yeah, because we could have Hiro Matsuda in as the technical guy, but
Right.
Barry Windham, Dusty Rhodes, um, Steve Austin,
Mm.
awesome. I met him. Did I show you the picture?
Yes.
That was fun.
Classic.
Um, and well, I have to say Flair. Yeah, I notwithstanding anything he's trying to do now or whatever, the whole he gets a bad rap all the time wherever he goes anywhere, but he's just the goat.
Yeah.
And that schedule he had to keep, what pressure. I
Right.
mean, the world champion nowadays, again, we're comparing old days and new days, but the new champion nowadays, they're on the road 4 days a year and they're working whatever. Back then, it was a grind.
Yeah.
And to be the world champion, to go an hour almost every night, no matter what country, city, town, Hoboken, big city, whatever you were in, there it is. I mean, he was, and to stay in the condition he stayed in that time,
Sure.
during that time, it was amazing. So yeah, I'd say, did I say four?
You did. Yep.
Okay, good. I could count.
So, Duane, thank you so much. I mean, there's so much more we got to talk about. So, got to have you back on for a part two eventually. Would love to have you back.
You're welcome, Joe. Thank you so much. It was awesome to do. I'm really glad. I'm glad I remembered some things.
Yeah.
So
A lot of
because
great stories.
I don't get asked about a lot of stuff. People are like, "What's it like to do pictures?" It's cool.
Right. It's been my pleasure to have you on. And in closing, fast forward many years from now, looking back at your career as a whole, how would you want to be remembered? What do you want your legacy to be?
In wrestling, or just as a person?
As a person.
I try to stay out of. I'm one of those people. I don't like friction. I don't like to rub people the wrong way. I always like to be the guy that. In fact, I don't remember who told me this. I don't know if it was Bobby Rogers, somebody down here told me one time. He said, "You're one of the people in wrestling that has no heat with anybody." And I like to keep an even keel, and not just wrestling, but I don't like to be. I just like to be good to people and have people good to me. You're treated like you treat others like you treated, or whatever that term is. But
Yeah.
yeah, I was told that from someone down here, because there's a lot of people that have like, this guy doesn't like this guy doesn't like this guy, whether they're a wrestler or a photographer or uh, announcer or whatever. I've never had that, at least that I know of. If anybody out there hates me, and then don't let me know. So
Well, again, I appreciate you, Duane, for being here. It's been an absolute pleasure. For the great Duane Long, I am Joseph Bruen, and this has been the All Access Entertainment Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave your comments. Love to hear from you, the fans, what you thought of this episode, who you'd like to see next time. And again, we'd love to have you back for a part two, down the line for sure.
thank you, appreciate it.
Absolutely. We'll see you all next time.